The purpose of this lecture is to fix two keyboard issues. So one of them is that we have this background space, right? Like when I tap on this white space, the image here, I'd like for the keyboard to disappear. It's a little bit frustrating that doesn't happen. The other one is that as I'm typing out the password, I'd like to just hit the little checkbox down here and have that automatically initiate the login process, which right now is not happening. So those are the two things I want to fix. So let's fix the problem first of, if I've entered in the password, and I want to hit that checkbox, that I can sort of complete and move on to doing the login or sign up process, depending on which one is selected, right? So let's go into Android Studio, and we are going to have to implement something else here. So after we have implement view on click listener, we are also going to implement capital view dot, and we want on key, not in key, on key listener this time. Now when we do this, we're going to get a little bit of an error here because it's saying, hey, you don't have the right stuff, and we need to add a new function here called on key, and just go ahead and hit enter on that, and as soon as we do that, that error will disappear up there. Then the code that we want to write here is basically telling us, hey, when someone hits a key, how do we want to handle this situation? So before we dive into that code, let's go down to our onCreate method here and sort of set up this onKey listener, and we're going to do it for our password edit text. So we're going to come down here, and let's make sure we have our password edit text at a place that we can get to it, and we currently do not. So for both these edit texts, I'm going to just copy this one, paste it up above, and we'll do the same thing for password here. Copy that and paste it up above. Okay, and we'll go ahead and say that now we can access these anywhere inside of the class. So since we have that option now, we're going to add a special little code here that says, okay, with this password edit text, and I'm realizing here that we probably need these in the onCreate, so I'm going to cut this code. Doing all sorts of moving around here, but we'll add this code, and now I can say, all right, password.edit text, I want to set an on key listener, and the listener that I want to add is this. And since we had added on key listener up here is something that this class implements, we are then able to move forward with the following function. So a very simple if statement we want to provide here, and it's basically just saying, hey, did they, is this the right key event here? And so what we're going to check with is first this int I. This tells us what kind of key event it was. And so we're going to check first and see if I is equal to, don't forget two equal signs, capital key event, and that's key event dot, and then in all caps key, there you can see there's all sorts of things here. We want key code underscore enter. Okay, so that's if they've hit the enter key. So we're going to check that, and we're also going to check for a key event, and we want to dot get action from that. That's another options that passed inside of here. And we want to see if this is equal to the action down. So we're going to say capital key event dot action down. So this is checking to make sure that it's the return key, the enter key that we have, and that it's being on the press down, because this can be entered multiple times. So if this is the case, we want to then run the code inside of this sign up clicked. So we'll simply just type inside of here, sign up clicked. We're going to have a pass it a view, which we have a view here. So let's go ahead and throw that in there. And this should solve our first issue. So we'll go ahead and run this on our emulator and see what that looks like. So again, we're trying to fix the issue that when we open the app, or when we're entering in the information, we should just be able to run everything from the keyboard there. So looks like the emulator is going to take a second here. There is a little bit of busy work that we can do while that's running. And that's that in the next portion, in order to get access to this relative layout and this image view, we have to give them some ID. So with this layout, remember I gave it the name layout because I'd accidentally mistaken this for the text view. But anyways, I'm going to call this background layout. Give that a proper ID there. And I'm also going to select the image view, and I can just call this maybe logo image view We just want to make sure that we give proper names to those so then we can reference them in code. Okay. So now with those two things in place, we need to be able to access these in our code. So we're going to get access to them in our onCreate. We're going to add to all this code where we get everything set up here. So we need to get access to an image view that we are simply just going to call logo image view, and we'll say this is equal to find view by ID. We want capital R dot ID dot logo image view. There we go. The other one that we want access to is that relative layout. So we're going to say relative layout that we'll just call background layout is equal to our find view by ID capital R dot ID dot background layout. So we'll come and deal with these in a second. Now it looks like our emulator has finished. So let's see if this first part works. So if I want to come enter a username, maybe I can type like Nick inside of here. And if I hit this next button, you'll notice automatically we get to come down to the password, which is pretty great. But then, you know, let's say I go ahead and put in some sort of password. I'm going to put some gibberish and I hit this button. Well, now it comes up and it says, hey, there's already a user account there. And if I switch to login and, you know, I hit enter on this, I got to make sure my cursor's there. But if I hit that, it's going to say, oh, invalid username or password. So that's successful. That part is working. But now we want to make it so that if I tap in this white space or on the image view, that we get the keyboard to go away. So in order for this to happen, remember how we did the set onClick listener for the login text view? Well, we're going to do it for the image view in this relative layout. So just like we simply have above, I'm going to take first my logo image view and I'm going to say dot set, and I want to do on click listener. There we go. And I just want to pass in this. And we'll do the same thing with the background layout. We'll say set on click listener and we'll pass in this. So then it's sort of alerting us about that. Now, once we've done this, this function up here becomes a little bit more complicated in this onClick, right? So we do this check here to make sure we're working with the login text view. We're going to put an else situation here where we sort of want to say, hey, well, if it's not that, maybe it's, you know, they've tapped on the background or they've tapped on that image view. So if that's the case, we're going to run another if statement here. So we have our else if. And what we're checking for here is we're going to say, all right, let's get this view and we're going to get the ID and check and see if this is equal to capital R dot ID dot logo image view. So that would tell us if it was equal to the image view, or we want to know if the same view dot get ID is equal to R dot ID dot, and this is where we want to get our background layout. So if it's equal to either one of these, we know that the user's trying to dismiss the keyboard. So we're going to use something called the input method manager. So make sure you go ahead and hit enter on that so you get the proper things imported. And we're just going to call this an input method manager and say this is equal to get system service. And the one that we're looking for is in all caps input method service. Look at that, it pops right up. So once we have this in place, we got to make sure that we cast this the correct way. So we're going to have to go ahead and put in parentheses here, hey, this thing coming back, this is an input method manager. But then on a new line, we will be able to say, okay, we're going to take this input method manager and we're going to say hide soft input from window. And with that, we're going to say get the current focus dot get window token. And then we also are able to pass in some flags. We don't want to do anything extra special. This will just close the keyboard for us. So go ahead and hit run. Now you may be thinking, man, this whole lecture, this was kind of some simple boring code. Nothing intricate was going on here, but it's these tiny small details that I think really makes an app for a user. And if, you know, in most apps, they're able to just hit that next button to get to the next field and then that final one to say log in. It's going to be a little bit frustrating if they try that and nothing happens. So this just makes it that much easier for them. Maybe if they have a smaller device, if they need to get to that, you know, get the keyboard to go down or whatever, this is going to help them immensely. So let's go ahead and test this out. Right, so I guess I'm going to have to click here to get the softboard keyboard to come up. And if I now click elsewhere, boom, look at that. Goes away. Even on the image, it's showing up. And I'll just hit this next key. I'll do some sort of password. Switch that to login, and I hit that button. Look, invalid username or password. So we know that that's working. Okay, we'll go ahead and cover more in the next lecture.